Welcome, welcome, folks. Happy Friday. This is Hurricane Hub Live, streaming on 13 News Now Plus. I'm Chief Meteorologist Tim Pandage. Special shout out to our viewers joining us on YouTube. That's a place where you can put some comments, too, if you have any questions about the content you'll see, and we can answer it here every weeknight at 8 p.m. on Hurricane Hub Live. Now, tonight on HHL, we've got a lot to cover. We've got a brand new area that's been tagged as an area of interest way out in the Atlantic. However, there's also been a few development downgrades. The other two areas of interest that we were talking about the last couple of days, well, the odds or the chances of them developing into a named storm have ticked slightly lower. In fact, one has gone to completely zero. The other is still at a moderate chance. And this brand new wave that's been tagged is just the first in a train, you can call, of tropical waves that are coming off the coast of Africa, and they're going to seed the Atlantic for some more development as we get deeper and deeper into the season. Of course, you can look at the climatology. We visit this every day here on Hurricane Hub Live, and it shows the trajectory of a normal season or an average season. And as we get into August, we typically see an increase, especially by mid-month, and then by the peak of the season, by September the 10th, it is usually extremely active, and that lasts for about a period of time, about a month or so of high activity. Out in the basin right now, here's what's left of Dexter. Okay, it's moving well up into the Atlantic. That turned extratropical. It's also much larger. And that typically happens as they gain latitude. Wind field expands, and they kind of take on different characteristics that are non-tropical in nature. And then we'll start off here, just off the east coast of the U.S. This was an area of interest just 12 hours ago. You can see there is a cluster of some convection, all of which moving away from the east coast of the U.S., but now it is not expected to develop at all. Chances have dropped to zero, so we will not see this get a name. Next name on the list is Aaron. Next up is another area of interest here. This one's got a slightly greater, in fact, I forgot to downgrade this. This is actually down to a 40% chance of developing, down from 60, so odds have decreased with this little cluster of unsettled weather here, or really kind of an anemic-looking cluster of thunderstorms. Again, down to 40% chance. My apologies. I forgot to update that little part of the graphic there. But this is going to be what we're watching here. This is on infrared satellite imagery. Very small cluster of some thunderstorms that are pretty intense for this area, but overall surrounded by a very stable atmosphere. And you can see here on satellite imagery, visible satellite imagery, certainly still evidence of a spin. And as this moves off to the northwest and moves into an environment that's a little less stable, as long as this circulation holds, the groundwork is set for it to take advantage of a more conducive environment. So we'll watch this. Even though it's down to a 40% chance of developing, it's still a moderate chance over the next 7 days that we see this become Aaron. And right now, it says it's stationary, 96L, but it does look to be on the move here. 30-mile-per-hour winds against satellite estimates here. I do want to bring your attention to this area that you can see here pretty well on visible satellite imagery of this smoky color. Well, that's actually just Saharan dust. There's the coast of Africa there, and we see it kind of protruding off the coast from the Saharan desert. And this is typical. Of course, we've seen this all season long, but it is beginning to lift farther to the north. And tucked in just to the south, you can see this cluster of unsettled weather. That is our new area of interest. Okay, right now, low chances, no development chances over the next 48 hours. But as we stretch things out and we get into the central parts of the main development region here, within the next 7 days, odds are up to 20%. So not exceptionally high, but based on how models are portraying this playing out, both the GFS and the Euro kind of consistently showing some sort of agreement on this, is that we'll likely see this grow in development odds over the next 7 days. So even though it's low now at a 20% chance, it doesn't mean to write it off. This is just the first in a long line of tropical waves coming off the coast. You can see them here. That's the first one that'll likely be Invest 97L in the next several days. We got another one right behind it in Central Africa, and then one in far Eastern Africa, too. And we'll see these fill on in and become more robust as we get deeper and deeper into the season, into the month of August. Let's go back to Invest 96L here. This is the only one that we can get computer runs on for our spaghetti charts, since it's been tagged as an Invest. And you can see here much more consolidated in the model output. Each line you're seeing here is an ensemble member from the GFS, European, and Canadian. I threw them all on here. You can see pretty consistent outputs here, all very tightly clustered off to the west-northwest over the next couple days, diverging a little bit, but all showing a turn to the northwest and then a turn almost due north, well to the east of there's Bermuda right there. So shouldn't be a threat as it looks right now to any land masses as it builds off into the central Atlantic and just kind of sits and spins. Here's how it looks on the GFS long-range model. We'll put it on relative vorticity here. That's looking for cyclonic spin, indication that there's an area of low pressures trying to get going there. So here's 96L based on the GFS imagery here. Watch as it plays out, tracks it to the north. Doesn't really look like much, but there's 97L, well, soon to be. And look at what it does with this one. It tracks it off to the west-northwest, much farther west than where we'll see 96L develop and move out. Now, this is a brand new run. I'll tell you what, this has been bouncing around all over the place, okay? So don't take this as written in stone or anything like that. Last run took it in through the Florida Straits and into the Gulf, okay, and into Texas. Now, this run is about 2,000 miles off towards the east, and then eventually does curve it. And this run, I will tell you, I looked at it for a little bit of a longer range. I stopped it here through about 9 days, but it does curve it out to sea and keeps it clear of the East Coast. In this run, it will change dramatically in the next couple days, most likely. All right, now let's look at the European model. 96L, again, this doesn't show it doing much at all, but again, watch the wave behind it starting to get its act together as we get in the middle of next week, and this one very similar to what we just saw on the GFS. So we've got long-range model agreement / consistency right now. Will that continue? It may not. Okay, but right now, maybe something to watch here as we get out 8, 9, 10 days out from now. So a lot of time to watch this. But Euro model here does bring it kind of maybe threatening the Greater Antilles and then maybe over to the Bahamas here. Again, this only goes out for 9 days, but shows possibly something to really be noteworthy. Next name on the list, we've been talking about this being a possibility with 96L out there. Maybe it gets a name, maybe it doesn't. But Aaron is up next, then Fernand, and then Gabrielle. We've only had 4 named storms, all of which have been pretty weak tropical storms. So when do we typically see the 5th named storm in an average hurricane season? Right around August the 22nd, okay? That's when you get the 5th named storm, the E name. But when we do a little more hyperscale here, short term, I guess, last 6 hurricane seasons, these are the dates when the 5th named storm developed. Last year, we didn't get, I believe it was, what was it last year? I know we had Debbie. I forget what the E name was last year. But August the 12th. And 23, it was the 20th. 21, it was in June. Okay, and then 2020 was 4th of July, which is interesting that 2020, it took until July the 4th when it was such an active season. That's how early it came. And then August 26th. So when I average all these days out, the average date over the last 6 years was August the 5th. So if we get it in the next week or so, we'll likely be in between the 30-year average and the 6-year average here, 22nd and the 5th. All right, let's go over to the Eastern Pacific now, and we still have 2 systems out there. We've got Henriette and Evo. And this one, Henriette's very interesting. Right now, it's a post-tropical storm. But check out the storm track, the cone. Typically, when it builds to the north, especially in the Eastern Pacific, well, in the Atlantic too, it moves into colder waters, and we see it just kind of fall apart. Kind of the opposite here. As it passes by to the northwest of Hawaii, it's actually going to be intensifying. Now, yesterday's track, or even earlier today's, it was forecast to become a hurricane. Now that doesn't look to be the case, but still a high-end tropical storm. 70-mile-per-hour wind, strongest it'll be in its entire lifespan as it's gaining latitude. So what's going on here? Well, you look at the sea surface temperature setup, which hopefully will pop on here in just a second. Sometimes it takes a minute to pop on here. Maybe if I jump ahead and go back. Or maybe not. Well, I guess not. We're not going to get any sea surface temperature. But I'll tell you what. The sea surface temperatures right now are a little bit cooler. And as it builds to the north and west, it does actually get warmer. So it's going to have more energy to use. And likely it'll reignite some of the convection with that system, and it'll reorganize and strengthen once again. Here's Tropical Storm Evo, 65-mile-per-hour winds. This was also forecast yesterday to become a Category 1 hurricane. No longer is the case. Still going to max out in the next 12 hours at 70-mile-per-hour winds, so a higher-grade tropical storm. This as well staying clear of land. So both storms in the East Pac are going to be staying clear of land. All right, let's get to yesterday's tropical trivia question. What's the record for the most hurricanes being active at the same time in the Atlantic? Well, this happened multiple times, and there's been 4 hurricanes active at once out in the Atlantic basin. It occurred 6 times. And the most recent was back in 2004, so 20 years ago. And this is a very interesting map here. These are all plotted. And Ivan was a very weird storm track, okay? This was a major hurricane, made landfall in the U.S. near Mobile, then moved north, did a little loop-de-loop, made a secondary landfall near Miami, and then made a third as you get between Houston and, let's say, over towards Baton Rouge. 3 landfalls from one storm. Look at how weird that track was. It was also accompanied by, at the same time, Jeanne, Carl, and Lisa. All hurricanes, even higher grade, major hurricanes, some of them, at the same time in 2004. And you remember, that was right before the really active season in 2005, the season of Wilma, the season of Katrina. So that's the latest. We'll have another trivia question for you on Monday on Hurricane Hub Live. In the meantime, scan the QR code to download the 13 News Now Hurricane Guide. It's got information on supplies that you should have on hand, emergency numbers you might need, and a whole lot more. Well, folks, I wish you a great weekend. We'll continue to monitor those waves out in the Atlantic, but nothing imminent, no imminent threat to the United States. Hurricane Hub Live is every weeknight at 8 p.m. We'll see you back here on Monday.